So in this video I'm going to show how to create a terrain such as the one that I show here using the terrain tools in Unity. I'm also going to bring in a few assets to draw kind of nice terrain using a paint texture tool. So I introduced you to a few tools on the terrain side, and then the goal is to preview this in VR, and to also enable teleportation in the simulation view, which is by default not available. And then we're also going to try it out on a VR headset, and I will get started here. So we're going to go into a Unity project, and I'm using my MRTK project. However, we'll create a new scene, start from the 3D one. And the first thing we do, so this is an MRTK project that I've already previously prepared. It has Oculus integration package. It has a mixed reality toolkit in here. If you do not see these menu items, then refer to other videos to really set up mixed reality toolkit. And what this does is it takes the camera and moves it inside the mixed reality playscape, and it creates this empty node called mixed reality scene content. And in that one, I'm going to place the light for now. So that's all I did. And well, our goal is to create a terrain, but as I will explain, we will need to get packages first. So one thing I want to make sure is that we have in the package manager, we have the enable preview packages enabled. So per default it's not. It may, however, already be enabled, because it should be, because you actually got the Oculus integration package if you followed the previous instructions. So I will go to Window, actually to Edit Project Settings, and I'll make this a little bit larger here. So right now I have disabled the Oculus, so I can, that is my way of doing the simulation view. And I want to go in the project settings to package manager and just make sure that you have that selected here. Otherwise you will not be able to see the package. So now I will actually go to Window, Package Manager, and I will show you on the slide what we want. So we want to go Window, Package Manager. We want to get the terrain tools, and we also want to get the terrain tools sample asset pack. Okay, so those two things. Okay, so we should be able to see in the Unity registry the terrain tools now. It's a preview, it's under preview, but it should be visible now because we just said it should be. I'll install it into my project. It'll download these terrain tools, the package that adds additional terrain sculpting brushes and tools to your project to help create stunning terrain assets and ease the workflows. That is what we want. And you will notice that once I have it in my project, it also suggests here download asset samples from asset store. It just, like, this is actually taking me to the thing that we want. It's opening the Unity asset store, and it's giving me the terrain sample asset pack. That's the one that we want you to use. And so it's going to take me back into Unity to the right page. And now I will actually, you would probably need to download first. I already have downloaded it before. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to import it into my project. And there should be a dialog confirming what things you're going to import. So you're going to get a bunch of brushes here and a bunch of textures for the terrain, which is really what we want. So that's pretty cool. And then we will also look at painting trees, I guess, at some point in this little tutorial. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go back to the asset store while I'm at it, and just going to get a free tree pack, because I want to be able to paint trees. I've been playing around with some of them. I want to make sure that they are free. I don't want to pay for it. And I have had some success, I think, with the mobile tree package. It has good reviews. A quick preview tells us we should be able to create some cool stuff with it. So I'm going to get that also. Feel free to try out other packages. Make sure it's free, don't pay for anything. Import it. We have previously used a lot of different assets in different projects, so it looks a little bit messy here. Might look a little cleaner for you. So I have these things in here now, so let us go back to the inspector, give a little bit more space to the scene, and let us get started. It is a mixed reality toolkit scene. I'm going to enable this. I'm going to put it in my scenes here. I'm going to save this quickly, terrain example, and that's the name of the scene. So anyway, we're going to go into the light, and we're going to get started. So at the moment, when I start this view, it gives me, this is always a good confirmation that I'm using Mixed Reality Toolkit. I am just using my mouse, and I can bring up the right hand with a space bar, and then the left hand with shift, and they can also stay. So that's something I can actually say to Unity. I can configure it in different ways, and there was a little bit of an interruption. One thing you cannot do in the simulation view per default is actually teleport. So that is something we should do later. There are instructions for that, and if I don't forget, I will set it up now, and you can skip it if you think it's not so important. So the way to do this is to go to the Mixed Reality Toolkit, give this a bit more space here in the inspector. We want to actually copy, and we want to be able to edit this, but in order to edit this, we first need to copy and customize the main Mixed Reality Toolkit configuration profile. And now I also want to, specifically for the input system profile, I want to clone that in order to be able to edit this. And then I want to go to the input simulation service. That's what I'm using, and I want to be able to edit this. So it's getting a little confusing here. So I thought I would be able to edit this now. I also have to clone the default Mixed Reality input simulation profile. So this is triple nesting or something. In any case, finally I get to edit things. I want to do hand gestures, and I want to do teleport start on the default hand gesture, and the left mouse, so that's going to be space, and the left mouse is going to do it to teleport end. And I think this should be correct now, so let's try this now. When I don't actually have an area where I can teleport, but I press space and I get my teleport gesture, and I would press left click to actually teleport, but I cannot at the moment, so we'll need a terrain. So let's continue with the terrain then. Now I'm going to show you the part where I'm going to get the terrain really set up for my scene. So we're going to go in the scene contents, create a new 3D object that is a terrain. One thing I want to make sure is that I maybe put this roughly. So one thing you'll notice, this terrain is really big, and like flying around with WASD is going to take forever. So one thing you could do to make this a little bit faster is increase here. Click this camera icon, increase the camera speed, which now means we are flying a little bit faster. It's still not very good, but it's a little bit faster than it would be otherwise. I use the mouse wheel a lot to zoom in and out. This terrain is going to be massive. So the first thing we're going to do is use repositioning, because I feel like I would like to, in my previous example, I wasn't really happy with where the terrain started, so I want it to be roughly centered. So I do minus 500 and minus 500, or 450 would have been probably good. Let's do that, and let's see whether we are happy with this. So now let's check where the camera is. The camera is right in the middle of this terrain, and I'm going to do a few mountains around the user, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to the terrain. Now is the fun part, actually painting the terrain. So there's a few different things here. It has a terrain component, this game object. That's when it happened when we inserted the terrain. I go to the paint terrain, and the default might be paint texture, but I'll get to that a little later. I first want to make sure we have a nice little terrain here. So I'm not sure which brush was selected for you per default, maybe something like this or this one. But because we got the terrain tools, we actually have quite a few different terrain stamps here, some mountain stamps. And I'll just click into the scene and I'll just like place a few of them around the user. We have a little bit of information here in the slide deck. We completed this. We are doing the raise or lower terrain. You can use shortcuts. A to change the strength. There are also sliders for this. Change the strength of the brush. S is changing the size of the brush, and D is changing the rotation of the brush. Now you will find all of these things here in the settings as well. So the brush strength, the brush size, if you want to have smaller, so I'm going to do smaller or larger. The way this works, you hold down S and you move your mouse left or right, not up or down. That doesn't actually really seem to work a lot. It really depends on the travel distance on the X coordinate. And we can do D for rotation and A for the strength. And the strength really just means how much of an imprint we'll generate. And so let's do a little bit like this, and then let's do a little bit of rotation so that not everything looks exactly the same. But let's also try out a few different brushes. And here, for example, a ridge, and place that here. And the user will be standing in the middle, so I don't want to do anything there because I couldn't actually figure out how to put the user on top of a mountain or something. And I want the user to be able to like see interesting, maybe vast, a little bit more of a landscape, and maybe I don't want them to see really the end there. So now, if I move into the camera position, this will look kind of interesting, I think. So, okay. And you can play quite a bit more with the terrain, and it's actually quite fun to just like draw it and paint it and have fun this way. And I feel like it looks a little bit empty, so almost want to have just a little bit. Let's see what the other brushes are. Creating a little bit of a canyon, creating a little bit of a cracked ground here, there. We kind of like don't want to have anything that is empty, and I'm gonna change the size a little bit to make sure that I don't have to yeah, that was a little bit too much. Let's undo this. Anyway, I would probably spend too long to make it really nice here, but even where the player is standing, yeah, I'm still not happy. This is actually too much. So the strength is too high. So let's just like reduce the strength. So we're just creating a little bit of, that looks a little bit uneven. And anyway, the player will probably never be there. And so, okay, I'm spending too much time here already, but let us paint some textures. So that's the next thing I want to show you. We're going to create some brushes here that are painting textures. So I scroll down, I'm going to enable the layers here. This is something that is covered on this slide. So if you go to the next one here, this one shows how to paint the texture stuff. So I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to do, my default layer is probably going to be snow. We're going to create like a winter landscape here. And when I do add layer, what it actually does is it inserts this layer, and the top layer here is the one that is everything that is just will be this layer, and we can actually add some green and stuff. So I'm gonna, and then each layer comes with a texture, a normal map, and a mask map, and that gives it some 3D appearance. It's not just like a plain white kind of texture. I'm also gonna get some dirt. I'm going to add another layer of moss, and I'm just going to get all of these and then see where I want to apply them. Sand and scree. So now I have them all in. Again, if I wanted to create, if I drag one of these to the top, that will determine what the kind of like the topmost layer is. But I can also just like add some moss now. I'm gonna go to my brush here, wondering what a good brush is, and I'm gonna increase the size of my brush, so I'm spending not too much time painting individually. So actually this is taking forever. I'm gonna go here and do the brush size here. I have a slider for that. And so if I increase the strength, you will add a little bit of green moss, maybe in the flatter areas. That would make sense. Maybe the snow is melting. I'm not sure. It should not be too high. Anyway, and yeah, I'm gonna use a little bit more of this mountain brush. Cool. That looked cool, and you can always undo, and you can also spend forever on this. Then I'm gonna have a little bit more of a rocky area maybe here. Actually, the strength is too much, so I'm gonna reduce the strength and just like gonna do it like this, and maybe partially rotating it. Rotation doesn't do too much. A little bit of that here, and this one should be a little bit more rocky, and this one should be a little bit more rocky, and then this one should be a little bit more rocky. Although I do want to see. All right, cool. So I'm quite happy with this. I could go on longer. Let us bring in a few more trees. We have 0 so far, so let us bring in some trees. So I'm gonna go to tree painting here, and we have a final slide for tree painting. Basically, we need to go to tree painting in the terrain tool, then go to manage trees, I think, or edit trees, and then I think it's manage and then add trees. So here, edit trees. Okay, so that's what it is. Add a tree, and I'm gonna pick something, and I've gotten some interesting ones. I wonder which ones look. Well, this could look cool in a winter landscape. So I'm gonna take this guy. And I'm gonna add this, and then I'm gonna add one other tree. Probably, you could really make it quite diverse and quite interesting. I think this one could also work well in my. Let's zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I'm quite happy with these two. So I'm just gonna add these 2 trees, and now I can also control the brush size, and I press 1 time. I have a pretty high tree density, and I randomize, and I have a lot of trees with a really big brush. And now I'm gonna intersperse. It actually doesn't. That didn't work. I should undo these. Okay. For some reason it doesn't show them to me. But let us see what we just created. So we're gonna run it. Yeah. So we have definitely different types of trees, but we're gonna elevate with E, and we probably added some elevation. So I'm not so exactly happy where the player is starting. But I will say I love what I've created here, but I don't like the starting location. So it is too bumpy where the player is, and I actually really haven't figured that part out too much. I'm going to stop here for a second. Let us see where the player is. And oops, I probably pressed play again, and I'm sorry, because it took a while to actually stop the scene. So we're gonna raise the camera until we think we are happy with where the player is starting, and this seems to be better. So one last play test. Still not good, but let us see whether our teleportation is working now. And now we can teleport. Right, but it's not the same as really experiencing it in VR. So that's the last thing I want to do in this video. I believe I've shown you painting trees and a few different things. That's what I want to show you. But now I'm going to really try it out in VR. So I'm going to go, when this is done, and I'm gonna enable in the project settings. I'm gonna go to the EXA plugin, just enable Oculus again here. I'm using the Oculus Rift at the moment. It could be your Quest. I don't want to deploy this. I just want to be able to play the button, press the play button here, and I want to be able to go into my VR headset, which I just put on my head, and I want to experience what it's like to be in my winter landscape here. Not happy about the starting location. The player will always be at 0, so but once I am here, now I'm actually happy. So I want to be able to navigate a little bit. When I'm really close to these textures, I will say it looks pretty bad. But I like really looking at things from a distance. Like I like to see the mountains through some of the trees, and the trees really add something interesting. And so I'm starting to feel like I'm building a virtual reality environment that is really quite interesting. The trees, the quality of the trees. I mean, when you get closer, you're looking at it too much, I think. But this is a really good view on this mountain. And I kind of like want to get there, but it's actually really quite fun. And I'll stop here. Okay, I'm gonna make one small amendment to the video just now, which is that well, I was raising the camera, but the camera actually, if you raise the camera and press play, it'll actually be reset all the time, so that doesn't help. So what I did to actually fix my terrain location, I actually moved the terrain lower, so that when I see the preview in the camera, which is at 0Y, then I get a preview of roughly what it looked like. So now when I actually start in my VR headset, and I'm actually at a location that I think is cool, and it doesn't look so bad as before, and I can get started to explore my winter wonderland. All right.